This is the father, Anthony Ford, who killed his young daughter, Brailynn Ford, in the photo here. And this is little Brailynn Ford, 5-month-old. And I'll get into the case in just a few minutes. Hey guys, how you doing? This is Mike McCormick with Advanced Criminology here in Owings Mills, Maryland. Today's title video would be the death of 5-month-old Brailynn Ford, who resides in Baltimore City. The reason I'm coming back on today, number one, is to discuss the death of this young little girl, infant, at the hands of her father 2 weeks ago, roughly. She succumbed to her wounds on October 7th. It was October 4th that the father had her in his custody for several hours, and she died as a result of injuries that she suffered at the hands of her father. So I will be discussing that in the next couple minutes here in the video. The next thing I wanted to bring you up on is that when I was on a couple days ago recently, I've been going through some things. My mother died about 2 weeks ago she'd been battling lung cancer for about 5 years, and so she succumbed to her death. She succumbed to that disease some 2 weeks ago as well. And so if you guys are interested and you live in the Baltimore area, today is Sunday, October 14th. She'll be the viewing will be at March Funeral Home, 4300 Wabash Avenue in the northwest section of Baltimore. Those of you who are familiar with the area. And that'll be again from 3 to 6 p.m. this evening. So we'll be taking guests at the viewing at that time. Tomorrow we'll be honoring her again at St. Luke's Memorial Chapel, which is at the intersection of Liberty Road and St. Luke's Lane. And those services will start at 10 a.m. promptly, and thereafter we'll be going to the interment, which will be at the Arbutus Cemetery in Southwest Baltimore. So if you have any other further questions or anything like that, feel free to email me. My email address is attached to the channel. Okay, so here we go. One of the reasons why I thought I'd talk about this particular incident is because at the time we went for a family viewing Friday just passed, so it's a couple days ago on the 12th. And while I was there, the young girl, the infant who had died at the hands of her father, she was in the main chapel. So there were several people in there, including the mom and extended relatives, taking guests at that time for the infant's viewing. She on Saturday, which would be the following day, which would be yesterday, they laid her to rest at I don't know what cemetery it was, but what bothered me, and this is one of the reasons why I came back on, is that it was interesting that here it is, my mother is in the same funeral home as this young little girl, just doors away, and we're viewing her body, and all of a sudden somebody told me and said, Mike, you might want to go down to the chapel there. The guy who killed his daughter, her body's in there now. So I went down there, signed the book. I didn't meet with the mother at the time. There were so many people there. So I just, went up, paid my respects to the child. But one of the things I did notice, since I was kind of aware of the case at that time, was I noticed that no matter how much makeup that the funeral people used to cover up bruises and things like that, you could still see vividly that the child's head was still swollen. She had black eyes, and it looked like there was some type of surface damage to her mouth, and it was all dark. So, and she was a light-skinned baby, so those injuries would be, pretty paramount that you could see them. So I just thought that was interesting. I thought it was fascinating that, it gave me an insight as to the severity, if you will, of the damages and inflicted upon this child by this father, who was 21 years of age. And so I just thought I'd reflect on that. And basically the story goes like this. On October the 4th, the family left the father, Anthony Ford, in charge of the baby. Anthony's 21. Anthony also has a prior record for assault and battery as a juvenile when he was 15. So according to the relatives, they left the child with Anthony. They came back around 3 o'clock and found that their child was not responding, and there were several bruises, and the child's head was swelled up. So they immediately took the child to the emergency room. A couple of days later, on the 7th, the child was pronounced dead. The police reported that the child had been shaken to death. So not only was the child shaken to death, the child also received significant amount of bruising, as I told you that I saw physically for myself. So it was kind of devastating to see those injuries that were inflicted upon the infant, you know, in the way that they were inflicted. And so I just thought I'd discuss that and bring that up. But also, this is, if you guys didn't know, this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, the month of October. So it's interesting that we would find ourselves surrounded nationwide with, you know, the influx of domestic violence, you know, going on around the country in different major cities, and it's no different than when domestic violence is inflicted upon children. On a personal note, I have my daughter right now. My daughter is 5 years old, and I have her with me because, not that she would not be cared for properly, it's just that I feel that she's in a better space if she's with me. And so I do things for a reason, and I want her to grow up, you know, and be a good child and have a happy childhood, as opposed to a childhood that would not be the same, you know, if she were in the care of her mom. And so, you know, it's no disrespect meant to her mother. It's just that I think her mother knows that she's kind of like in a better place when with me. So I'll leave it at that. But I talk about these things. These are personal things I do not have to share with my audience, but I share them just to let you know that I suffer too from some of the ills of society that goes on. And I'm readily and happy to explain what happens in my life from time to time. So I'll leave it at that. But what I wanted to talk about is I took some notes in reference to this particular case. This individual, Anthony Ford, was charged with murder, of course. He's also charged with child abuse resulting in the death of an infant. He's charged with first and second degree child abuse, and he's also charged with second degree assault. Let's see. Again, I told you it happened on October the 4th, and as a result of her injuries on October the 7th, she had died. Now, I will tell you, I did a little research like I'm supposed to. As a criminologist, you do a lot of research when it comes to things that happen, you know, crime and the type of crimes. And so child abuse is a big deal. It truly is a big deal. I tell you folks, when you start looking at the numbers out there, the numbers are very alarming as to how many children a year die from child abuse. And so the national survey taken by Psychology Today, they said that in 2014, at least 1,600 children died from child abuse. Okay, that was in 2014. And at 80% of those deaths occurred at the hands of their parents. So that's the mother, father, or, you know, someone close to the family. They indicated that 54% were women, 48% were white, 20% were African American, 19% Hispanic, and 3% unknown. So I thought those statistics were quite illuminating, and certainly they have an impact if you haven't studied it and you're looking at the numbers, and numbers mean something. I think it was the University of Texas, the Texas Research Center, did studies that show that infants are the most abused and vulnerable, and at a higher rate of about 20% per 1,000 infants. And this was in 2010, and that they are more than twice the risk of just, you know, regular teenage children of child abuse. And we all would know why that is. Simple because the infant doesn't have to fend for itself. It has to have a mother and father the whole time until they reach a certain age. And so we kind of know that they would be vulnerable to people. There's also a study out there that talks about some of the things that occur as to why children, particularly infants, are abused to the point that death is a result. They indicated that there was economic stress factor there, and they also indicated that there was a lack of support for young families. Now let's face it, this guy's 21. I believe the mother is probably the same age, and they're living in an area in West Baltimore that, you know, is a stressed out area, that's for sure, on Mosier Street, which is not that far from, you know, actually where Freddie Gray was killed back in 2015. So we all kind of know, those of us who grew up in the area kind of know what the deal is with that part of West Baltimore. So, but it doesn't negate the fact, nor should it substitute for a fact that a young child was killed, whether economic stress plays a factor or not, or whether lack of support plays a factor or not. I think this kid Anthony had an obligation that if he couldn't handle a child crying, and it was reported so far by the police department that the child was crying because the child at that age, most mothers know who are watching this channel now, that most children at that age are cutting new teeth, so they cry all the time. Now, I went through it myself. I have 2 girls, you know, so I went through it myself. My oldest now is in her 30s, and this is my youngest, so I've been through it, so I know how it is. So you have a situation where a young person who really has no parenting skills is left in charge to watch a 5-month-old baby, and he doesn't know how to handle or cope dealing with a child who's crying all the time, and as some people would do who have no skills in parenting and do not understand what goes on with children or infants, right? He basically tried to quiet the child by beating the child to death, and he succeeded in doing that. I would venture to say that if he had to do it all again, he'd have probably went to a next door neighbor, probably would have called somebody on his cell phone and sought some counseling, or asked for the folks to come back to the house because he couldn't handle what was going on with the child. Okay, so you know, those are the things that happen. It's unfortunate that we lose a child, an infant, a person who really just never got started life at all. So, you know, I felt for this young mom, I felt for her family when I walked into the chapel and I saw this 5-month-old baby in the condition that the baby was in, even after death. So I just wanted to bring that up. If you have any comments relating to child abuse, if you know anybody, you know anything about child abuse, quite naturally you want to report it to your local authorities. If you have any personal stories you want to share, you can do that in your comments section. My name is Mike McCormick, and I'm with Advanced Criminology here in Owings Mills. I want to thank you guys for your time. And don't forget, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We're always trying to get more subscribers to the channel. That keeps us afloat, and we get the message out. If anything that you want to add in your comments, or you think I need to do a follow-up on this, you know, I will in the future. But again, I just thought I'd bring it to your attention. And again, I kind of put this video together because it's around at the same time my mother died of lung cancer, and at the same time this infant here dies because of child abuse. My name is Mike McCormick. I'm with Advanced Criminology, and I'll catch you guys later.